Hey there, folks. This is Kevin Madison from Project Dragonfly. I hope you enjoy this podcast about Dragonfly community members doing inspiring work. If you have ideas for a guest or want to be more involved in this podcast, please feel free to directly email me. Thanks again for listening and enjoy the episode. I am excited to share this conversation with Jennifer Redmond. Jennifer is a 2022 graduate of Project Dragonfly's Advanced Inquiry Program with the Denver Zoo. She is extremely unique, in my opinion, in that she has a day job of being an optometrist, but on the weekends and often after work in general, she is a raptor ecologist. She has, for over a decade, been working with the Raptor Education Foundation in Brighton, Colorado. And she has done an enormous amount of work specifically with kestrels. Kestrels are one of the most beautiful birds that I often see in Ohio, where I live, on telephone wires and in various open field type habitats. But there is concern they are declining in some areas. And Jennifer has been developing a very, very unique kestrel nesting box project in the region of Colorado where she lives. She set up dozens of boxes, monitoring them for kestrels, chicks, and also banding individuals so that we can see whether they're coming back to these nest boxes through time, where they're moving, and lots of other information. In addition, she is also a Girl Scout mentor and organizer. She does a lot of different things. And I think for those in this program who maybe are in a career that is not directly conservation biology aligned, but are trying to figure out how to make that a part of your life, Jennifer is an exceptional model for that way of organizing her interests and her ability to fit in that passion that she has for biology and for conservation of these kestrels and other birds. She's also really excited, as many are, about getting kids into nature and providing ways for them to interact, whether it be through demoing and showing ambassador animals such as raptors and other species. And so I think this conversation will connect with many of our listeners. And without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Jennifer Redmond. All right. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining for the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So it's been a little bit since you graduated from Dragonfly, but I wanted to start things off with talking about your day job as an optometrist in Colorado. And I know I was looking over your portfolio, actually, and you mentioned you had noticed an increasingly wired generation staring at screens and becoming nearsighted. And I have two kids, a 12 and a 16-year-old, and they're always looking at their phones. So I just want to start off with that and what it's like being an optometrist in this day and age.
So I have this conversation about screen time with families multiple times a day, and I have 3 children of my own. And these were some of the reasons why I was motivated to take action. And I feel like connecting our kids to nature is needed more now than ever, from a vision standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, from physical health. So these were some of my motivations for starting the program. It's interesting because, I'm an optometrist. That's my profession. Back in college, I remember sitting down with my guidance counselor, my advisor, and I was really making this decision whether I was a biology major. Do I go into healthcare, or I really had a passion for like environmental biology? and I made a conscious decision. One day I said, no, I'm not changing to environmental biology. I'm staying the course. I'm going to be in healthcare. And I knew I was going to be an optometrist, but I always had this hole, or something was missing. This piece was missing that I felt needed to be filled. And here I am 25 years into my career. And that's when I finally have the time. I've cut my schedule back a bit, and this piece is still there. And now I'm pursuing my connection to more conservation and that piece of biology, and interestingly connecting it to the work I'm doing now, right? And it kind of stemmed also from this conversation I have every day where I just see kids are inside on devices, and we need to find ways to engage them with nature and the natural world and get them outside.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely always reminding my kids and worried about their eyes. And I recently looked up, the average screen time for like teens in the US is somewhere around 7 hours a day, which is just shocking. I don't know. How old are your kids now?
I have twin 13-year-olds and I have a 17-year-old.
Okay.
So yes, if you look at the screen time on a kiddo's phone, it really needs to be watched and regulated and taking breaks. And we prescribe lenses now that are very, the point is to be very proactive and preventative. So they also have a power factor in the bottom. So when they look down, it relaxes their eyes when they're looking at near point, computers, laptops, reading, all of that. So that was one way I've always been, involved in preventative for this issue. But then I thought I need to do more. The root cause is still there, right? The
So
lenses alone are not going to fix the problem.
So the lens, and we'll get to the root causes, yeah, because I want to segue into kestrels and all your work there. But so you're saying there's like a lens that you put on their glasses or on the actual device?
On their glasses, the way I prescribe their glasses, because these kids are becoming more and more nearsighted, so they need glasses to see better far away. But the way the labs can make lenses now, the way they cut the lens as you look down, which is generally what we're doing when we're working up close or reading, is as you look down, the power relaxes to relax the eyes while they're reading and learning. So it's like called an anti-fatigue lens, or sometimes we call it a boost. It's not a bifocal. It's called a single vision lens, but it's a stress relieving lens.
So does that mean it gives them more energy to be on screens longer? Or it's
well, they're going to be on screens, but so we need to do everything we can. We need the blue light protection, we need the stress relieving lenses, and we need to monitor their time on screens, right? We need to monitor, we need to take breaks, we need to use good lighting, good working distance, all of the ergonomics we have at our disposal, but that doesn't give you the permission to spend 20 hours a day.
Got it. So yeah, and I also think with your career, it's interesting that decision point you had in undergraduate of, do I go sort of environmental or more, I guess, sort of human health, medical aligned. And I think a lot of people join Dragonfly because they want to switch careers. I don't know if that ever ran through your mind, or was it just like, hey, I always knew I just wanted to do conservation work, education work as an addition to my career?
When I joined Dragonfly, it was not my intent to change careers. In fact, one of my biggest challenge was starting. Mm-hmm. I wrestled with the idea of, I just felt like I kind of became stagnant a little bit in life, and maybe, I don't know if the burnout's the right word or what have you, but I thought I'm looking for something else. And I wrestled, I thought, here's a cool program. I was a Denver Zoo member, and I got marketing through Denver Zoo about this program. And I thought, well, that's cool. Let me look into that. And I went to one of the information nights and then sat on it for a year or so. And I just kind of kept wrestling with the idea, and I'd mention it or, bounce it off someone. And I remember my dad saying, you already have a career. Like, what are you doing? And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm looking for something. And then I finally just said, you know what? I had a real soft start. I said, I'll just start. If I take one class and it's a fun class and I decide I don't like it, I'm not going to continue. And so I kind of gave myself that permission to just explore a little bit. And I loved it. So after the first class, I'm like, I don't know what else I'm going to do, but I'm hooked. And I never, like I said, my intent was not to change professions, but I may indeed end up retiring from optometry much earlier and finding a second career as a result of my master's, whether it's part-time or just living my passion, retiring and living my passion, doing this work. I don't know what's going to come of that yet, but I've graduated and I'm still working through that.
Well, it's funny. I always wonder, and as an advisor in the program, I debate when people have a stable job, but it's in an area that they don't necessarily like feel that passionate about. So it's like, well, and I think sometimes they debate, like, should I keep this job or go into, take my chances in the environmental field or even education field, both of which tend not to pay that well. And also there's not a ton of options. So it can be pretty risky. So anyway, I think what you've done in many ways makes a lot of sense. You have a career that's stable and something you enjoy. And then you've got like perhaps maybe a bigger passion that you're able to do on the, through volunteer work.
And there's ways that I've married the two, like now through the Colorado Optometric Association, I am on a board, a committee called the Green Committee. It's ways that we can look for as an organization to become more sustainable. And like this came out of my climate change class. And part of Dragonfly is I learned what I was passionate about and I learned when to say yes. I kind of put myself out there and I kind of just sent an email and I'm like, I'd be open. I want to be on the Green Committee. And they're like, sure, come on in. And I don't know how much I would have put myself out there before this.
I love that. Yeah, knowing when to say yes. And I will have to ask you how you find time for it all at some point.
Hi, this is Kirsten Keener, one of the producers of the Dragonfly Conversations podcast. We wanted to take a brief trivia break to engage your mind and to get you thinking. The trivia topic today is falcons. We will reveal the answers near the end of the podcast. Here are your 3 questions. Question number 1. How many species of falcon are there in the world? Option A, 5 species. Option B, about 40 species. Option C, about 100 species. Or option D, over 200 species. Question number 2. What is the largest falcon in the world and where does it live? Hint, it's a great falcon. Question number 3. What is the fastest falcon in the world? We have a feeling many of you will know this one. All right, enjoy and stay tuned to the podcast and listen for the answers to the trivia near the end.
But I did want to go back towards this experience you had with a kestrel release in college that you do talk about in your portfolio as we kind of get into your work with kestrels and raptors in Colorado. So maybe you want to just describe what it was about that experience that was so formative for you.
So I was a camp counselor at a wildlife camp over my summers in college in Iowa. And we had a field campus outside of town. That's where we go out to have this camp. And associated with that field campus with the University of Iowa is a raptor program, now named Iowa Raptor Project. So here I'm a counselor, and they do some rehabilitation with Iowa Raptor Project, and they had a kestrel to release, and they asked for a volunteer to release it and literally handed me this kestrel, and I was able to release it back to the wild and watch it fly off. And I think in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. And those kind of moments stick with you and you don't realize what's happening at the time. But then I looked for opportunities along the way. How can I do more with birds? Oh, this is something raptor related. That sounds neat. And I just looked for those opportunities. This is a little bit of a full circle story. So years later, I'm practicing as an optometrist, and I have a patient. I like to ask patients, what do you do for fun? what are your hobbies? What are your passions? And I had a patient who was volunteered with a local nonprofit Raptor Education Center. And I thought, well, that sounds cool. And she handed me her docent card and I tucked it away, but I held on to it. And here, 3 years later, I said, I'm gonna volunteer for that Raptor Center. I'm gonna do what she did. That sounds really cool. And so I started volunteering with that Raptor Center 19 years ago. And so they do education, no rehabilitation, all education. But that's another piece in me saying, I love watching the kids, their eyes light up when they see this bird in hand, and they're so engaged, and the questions they ask, and their inquiry and wonder. And I thought, I want to do more of this. How can I do more of this? Or how can I build upon this? So eventually that brings me back to Dragonfly, right? So it's one of those formative moments, full circle. Now, this last fall, the same gentleman who ran the camp, Dave Conrads, who ran the sports camp that I worked at, the wildlife camp I worked at, he said he heard of all the work I was doing with kestrels, and I filled him in a little bit on some of my Dragonfly projects, and he said, why don't you come back because we're gonna trap hawks during my fall migration here back in Iowa. And so this fall I got to go back and help him during hawk migration. So cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And when you describe holding the kestrel, and did they actually give it? Did you have to wear like a glove or anything, or did they just like put it in your hands and let it go?
I didn't wear a glove. It's really their power comes from their feet, right? And so if I'm holding it around here, they showed me how to do it safely, as you always need to do with raptors.
Right. And I guess, kestrels are such a beautiful bird, but I feel like, and they're this tiny falcon. But I feel like most people, maybe they have a vague idea of what they look like, but you see them sort of backlit up on a wire somewhere, and you don't see, only if you have good binoculars, do you see the beautiful colors, right? And the markings on them. I just think they're a gorgeous bird. And I know you've also worked with other raptors, like you said, with the hawks and all that. So, and I think I read that you have, is it true, demoed like eagles as well, and in education programs?
Yes. So the Raptor Education Foundation, the nonprofit that I still volunteer with, they have about 30 non-releasable raptors. So, and I'm tall. I'm 5'11". So being tall is actually a huge advantage to handling these eagles, because when on the glove, when they bait or fly a circle, and with a over 6 foot wingspan, I have the height to keep them up and off the ground. So it is an advantage. But yes, I'm one of their eagle handlers.
That must be just so cool to have the spectrum, right, of eagles all the way down to probably kestrels are perhaps the smallest thing you would demo from there.
We have eastern screech owls. They're a bit smaller.
Gotcha. Yeah, and adorable as well.
Right, the cute factor.
Yeah, and I saw in your portfolio, I saw there was like a video, and I think you were demoing in front of a group of girls. I don't know if it seemed like it was almost all girls. I don't know if it was Girl Scouts, maybe.
It was Girl Scouts, yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because like at first they're kind of fidgeting around, like some of them are just sitting on the floor fidgeting a little bit, but then the animal comes out and you see their eyes just like, just kind of shocked by seeing it up close. I don't know what kind of animals were demoed there, probably several, but the power of these ambassador animals,
Right. Those are the moments of connection.
Very cool. So kestrel experience, and then you had volunteered with this organization, you get into Dragonfly, and then I know you and I started talking through email about maybe getting IACUC animal care approval through Miami to, do some work with nest boxes. So maybe, you can share like why you were doing that and what you did for the nest box project.
So the nest box project came out of my community conservation course, and we had to create a story map. And I created a story map wanting to place nest boxes in my own community, town of Parker, Colorado. And so I created it, and then I thought, I love this project. This doesn't just have to be a project on paper. I know I did this for class and I turned it in and I got my grade, what have you, but I want to do this. And so the next semester I started making phone calls, reaching out to parks and open space, forestry and open space here in my hometown. And I said, I had already started volunteering with another nonprofit that worked with raptors out of Estes Park. And through that nonprofit had some experience of going out with a director and checking nest boxes. So I had an awareness of it, just hadn't done it myself. I heard some, he did some Zoom talks on it, and it just sounded like a great project, a manageable project. And I said, I'm going to implement it. So I talked to my town and proposed the idea. The first year we simply put up the boxes. And after that, I thought, okay, next year we're going to be banding some birds. So that's when I went for IACUC approval for handling wildlife. So it was a multi-year project through my time in Dragonfly. First the nest boxes, then it was banding the adults and the nestlings. Now it's even since I graduated, the project has progressed. I have installed a nest box that has power and Wi-Fi and has an internal and external camera on it. So the Parker Kestrel Cam has come to fruition finally. And this is our first season. So we built that nest box. We have a nesting pair in it. We don't have eggs yet, but this is where we are now. I got to tell you a little story. So I have, I have the cameras linked to my phone. So here I am shopping for pet food in PetSmart, and I get a notification that there is activity in the nest box. And here I am shopping for kitty litter, and I see a kestrel come up on this video, and I did a happy dance. And I didn't care who was watching.
Awesome. Awesome.
Because the last thing you want to do is put all these cameras in and not have kestrels nest in the box. So I was elated.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. To see something come in, and there's probably other things that, try and come in.
We've had
like
flickers.
House sparrows. Okay.
Yep. A flicker was roosting in it at night for a while. I thought, oh, please, kestrels, please come by. This is a great place. And then, we've had starlings, and I thought, oh yeah, you can move along, and they did. And I had a great little clip, because I get all the clips of the motion on the camera, so I had a clip. Generally right now the flickers will come in and check it out during the day and then be gone, but in the kestrels, the females nesting in there at night. And there's a clip where the kestrel's in the box. The flicker comes up to the entrance hole and looks inside, and she pops her head out, and you should see that flicker turns and hightails it out of there so fast.
That's right. Because kestrels they hunt other birds from time, right? Is that one of their main prey sources?
Not their main. I would say their main. It depends on where they are. Generally, it's lots of grasshoppers and voles, since they're daytime hunters. Some mice maybe at dusk, but they will take some small songbirds. A flicker would be much too large, but that female kestrel will certainly kick her out.
Right. Get the territorial behavior going. It's interesting because I think of bluebirds and their issues, I believe, with house sparrows coming in and being aggressive. And I just wonder if kestrels, because they are a raptor and they have that imposing behavior, perhaps other birds taking over is not as much of a problem. Is that true, or is that inaccurate?
I think there is. We don't know why kestrel numbers are declining. Their populations are down by 50% since the 1960s. So this is a long, slow decline. One of the big ideas is theories is habitat loss for sure. And they need these the trees with existing cavities, because they're a secondary cavity nester. They nest in a cavity, but they don't create their own. So they need to find an abandoned flicker hole to use for their nest, an abandoned flicker cavity. So we need those, dead trees to be standing. We need the habitat for hunting. Yeah. So there is some theory about competition for nest sites with the loss of habitat. And in some of my, like now that I've been watching these Parker nest boxes, we've had starlings in some of the nests. And interestingly, we've had bluebirds in one of the nests 2 years in a row. So mountain bluebirds here in Parker.
Wow.
Yes.
Lucky. That's one on the life list that I haven't gotten yet, is a mountain bluebird. So maybe I need to check that out. Very cool. That makes me think also of, our course in Belize. We have the Earth Expeditions in Belize, and we talk about a lot of different conservation issues, but one is yellow-headed parrots. And for them as well, it seems to be a very specific habitat niche where they like Caribbean pine in the tropical savanna there in Belize, but they also have limited cavity nest sites. And so they're have a similar project through the Belize Zoo and the Tropical Education Center there, increasing nesting boxes for them. And it makes me wonder how many birds, nesting is the limiting resource as opposed to like food or other factors.
Well, there's some theory that actually the birds that do come back year after year, the ones that come back and nest are successful. So once they're nesting, they're successful and they're fledging young. So we're also, the challenge with birds is you have to look at the full cycle.
Right.
So what's happening in their wintering grounds is the other challenge.
Right. And the kestrels they're not year round, right? In Colorado, where are they?
Some are, some do stay year round, but many of them migrate.
Okay. And do you know how far they go down south?
They'll go down to southern United States. They'll go down to Texas. I think they'll also go into Mexico and Central America, some down there.
Interesting. Yeah. So let's talk about the chicks of these kestrels as well. Because I know you've been banding the adults, and hopefully that's giving some good data. Like you're seeing that they come back. And then what about the chicks? Are they in the area? Have you resighted chicks after banding them?
So this is now season 3. We're just starting season 3. I've had adults return to the same nest box. I've had new kestrels come into a previously used nest box. I have not had a banded chick come back to one of the nest boxes yet.
Mm-hmm. Probably makes sense that they would go find their own spot. I don't know how long it takes for them to get to sexual maturity and be ready to start their own nest.
So the other part of this, that now it's growing. So I placed an additional 12 nest boxes this last year, and I'm going to place an additional 12 more for next season. So the more boxes I have to check, the more data I'm going to have. And I'll be covering a larger area to be able to, gather more data over space and time. So that's going to be good.
Now, obviously you can't put cameras in all of them, right?
No, I've only put a camera in one.
Okay.
And part of the challenge is they love to hunt in open, like short grass prairie, open space. And a lot of times in open space, you don't have access to power and Wi-Fi. So that was one of my big challenges with the placing the camera, is getting access to power and Wi-Fi.
Gotcha. So the Wi-Fi is so that it can upload the images directly onto like a public Wi-Fi that's available somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then is that something people can find online? Like the Arvada, was it the Arvada kestrel cam or?
Yep. So Arvada is actually another kestrel cam. That is actually someone I've connected with through Dragonfly, and I'm now banding her kestrels. But she's a separate kestrel camera.
Okay.
But now she's become one of my good friends. And funny enough, her husband's an optometrist. So
Wow.
It's a funny world we live in. So I went out and banded the chicks in her box 2 years ago. And then she was like, oh, and this is my husband. And, and I said, why, his name sounds familiar. Lo and behold, he's a colleague of mine. So, but she has a kestrel cam, and she's a motivated, passionate citizen with a kestrel box in her backyard with a camera. So we become good friends. But yeah, we have one box with a camera that I've placed.
And how do you, is it publicly, are the images or video publicly findable?
It is. So that's the just as of last week, the live stream is now on Parker's website. So I did a write-up. I created some content for their website for a page dedicated to the kestrel camera, and it's live as of last week. So I can share the link with you, Kevin, and people could go look this season and watch. I also have the cameras streaming on the website of the nonprofit I partnered with for this project. CARI, it's called, Colorado Avian Research and Rehabilitation Institute. That's the group out of Estes Park. So it's on their website, and it's on Town of Parker website now.
Okay, I think I just Googled Parker, Colorado kestrel cam, and both of those came up top matches for me. So I'm sure that'll work for folks to be able to check them out. Okay, do you have a favorite, as you've gotten to know these kestrels? I mean, do you have a kestrel you've felt more connected to any of the others, or any interesting stories with them? I mean, I love the flicker story you were describing of it chasing it away.
I wouldn't say I'm any more connected to any one of them. I think I'm most intrigued as we come up on season 3. There's a female who's there. The first year I banded the female in a nest box. She came back the second year. The first year they successfully fledged young. The second year, she's in the same box, female.
Does she have a name or a number, or do you just?
Well, she has a band number.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
I wasn't sure if you referred to her by some
I don't.
moniker or something.
My children, as I do these projects, and I said, oh, look what's happening now. They're like, they call her like mom. They call the female kestrel in the box Mama K. Yeah. So, but this is a different box without the camera. The second year they were not successful in fledging young. They laid eggs, and she incubated those eggs, and it was past the timeline on when they would have hatched, and they were not viable. So one of the challenges we sometimes have here in Colorado is spurts of extremely hot days. And sometimes we lose some of the eggs because they're overheating. So that is a challenge. And who knows? I don't know if the male was a different male, and maybe that was a part of it. But this last year, now I've banded the female. Last year, I banded the male. So now we're going to see in that same box if we have the female return for a third year, and if it's the same male.
Interesting. I wonder what the literature says. Like, are they monogamous and pair for life, or?
They generally are. They generally keep the same mate. Yes.
But of course, anything can happen on that long journey. And, and also, things are often more complex than they seem from the literature. That'll be fascinating.
Yeah. So her story is still that box, the story of that nest box is still unfolding.
Love it. Very cool.
Hi again. This is Kirsten Keener with the answers to today's trivia questions on the podcast. Today's trivia topic was falcons. Hopefully you've had some time to think about your answers. Here they are. Question 1. How many species of falcon are there in the world? You had options for 5 species, about 40 species, about 100 species, or over 200 species. The answer was about 40 species. For this answer, we only included birds in the genus Falco. There are other related birds in the subfamily Falconae, like Carcharodon, that we are not including in the total of 40 species. Question 2. What is the largest falcon in the world and where does it live? The answer is the gray falcon, with a length of up to 65 centimeters. It lives in the Arctic. The smallest falcon, if you were wondering, is the pygmy falcon, which lives in Africa. And question number 3, what is the fastest falcon in the world? And of course, the answer is the peregrine falcon, which has been clocked diving at 200 miles per hour, making them the fastest moving species on the planet. We hope you enjoyed this trivia. Take care and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So I'm curious, we have a lot of people in Dragonfly that, kind of are interested, that are birders and ornithologists and or interested in banding projects. And, and yet it seems almost like seamless the way you were able to, navigate and get involved with these organizations. But I think for some people, it's not that easy. And I'm just curious if you have any recommendations for someone who's like early career or maybe early wildlife interests and like wants to get into this world of banding and nest box and all these conservation of wild birds. What do you recommend?
I think I would say I was fortunate to, my first connection with the local nonprofit is the Education Center, Raptor Education Foundation. And I think I've just been there so long that they, I stuck around long enough, I got to do everything. And eventually I learned and became proficient and built my own capacity, and it really became a springboard for doing more. I searched out volunteering with Kerry out of Estes Park because of his work with raptors, and that's where my passions lie. And no one else really in Colorado is doing work like he is. And honestly, I made myself available and valuable as a volunteer. I would help him in any way possible. I just wanted to get in the door and do some of this work. I mean, there was one season I was like, I'll help fold your newsletters. What do you need? You want me, you want me to paint nest boxes? You got it. Like I did whatever I needed. And this was, as I was starting, and I learned in the process. This is not work that's beneath me. This is an opportunity for me to learn and connect. And I did. And then it moved from like his newsletters to, he's also a published author. And I started editing some of his short pieces. And then he asked me to edit a book he did. And I thought, and I made myself very valuable. And now we do bird banding together. We do owl banding in Rocky Mountain National Park. He's my, mentor for the banding the kestrels, and I'm sub-permitted under his license. So I just kept going and kept learning and kept doing and get involved.
Yeah.
And now that, and through the Advanced Inquiry Program really is how I became connected with Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. What a wonderful organization. And now I band with them as well. And that was very intentional. I really felt I could gain a greater depth in my education if I didn't just learn from one person. So I thought, well, I'm learning some banding from my mentor with one organization, but now I also band with another organization, and I gain different insight from the different organizations and from working with different banders.
Right. But I think, and you said something important though, which is like, you might not be banding on the first day you're volunteering, right? You might be folding newsletters, and that's okay if you approach it with the right mentality. And then this mentor, can you just say his full name? And also you said he's published some books and anything about that? Yeah.
Scott Rashid is the director of Kerry, and it's RASHID. So he's a bird bander, he's an author, he's an artist. So he really pairs all of those passions in his work. And he's really become a great mentor for me especially in this kestrel project. Right.
And I think each state and region, there's usually someone like Scott, probably like in your area. I'm thinking of Dave Russell, who works at Miami University and does bird banding throughout the season with primarily undergraduates, but some graduates, and anyone really is welcome, I believe. So I think there are opportunities out there if people seek them out.
And make connections, find connections. I'm still doing that. I've kind of always thought about possibly becoming a falconer, and I haven't gone that route yet, but I'm a member of the Colorado Hawking Club. And just this weekend, I said, they're having a banquet. Maybe I should just go, and I'm like, okay, I'm saying yes to this. I already have connected with like 6 people within this organization who are falconers through my connections with the kestrels and the work I've done there. I think this would be a very valuable event for me to go to, whether I'm just meeting new people or connecting to people, and you never know what you're going to learn.
I'm trying to picture what this banquet of falconers is going to be like.
I don't think birds will be present. I think they're probably dressed up they're as clean and as good as it gets for this banquet. They're on their best behavior and not in their field clothes.
Got it. And it does seem like a bucket list item that I've never considered, becoming a falconer, having that as part of your life list. I'm
waiting on that one until having 3 teenagers in the house and 3 teenagers period is this is not the timing, but I decided I'm gonna attend the 2-hour Zoom apprentice training and see. I want to learn more.
Okay, well, this sounds like a good time to ask you how you managed it all. What does your time management look like, and like, what was your routine as a Dragonfly student? I mean, how do you find time to do all these things with the family, the job, the full-time job, the volunteering in multiple organizations? It just seems almost impossible to manage all that.
It's a little crazy at times, but the beauty of the Dragonfly program is that it was flexible and customizable. And that was actually one of my hesitations starting, like, do I have time for this? But I thought, well, like I said, I'm just taking 1 class. That's all I was going to do. And so, but what I learned is after semester 2, when I took too many course credits in one semester and was quite honestly uncomfortable, I'm like, okay, I've overstepped here. I decided I am going to take 1 to maybe 2 classes a semester, depending on how much demand they take. And I'm going to go at my own pace. And you can with Dragonfly. So that's what I did. I know people they can finish in 2.5 years. I was on a 4-year plan. So it actually, I think, was really advantageous for me. It gave me time for some of my projects to come to fruition during my time in the program, to really build my master plan. The kestrel nest boxes, it takes seasons, it takes years. So I had years because I was in the program for 4 years. And then I just liked how flexible it was. I could, after everyone goes to bed, I could do my work. I could do my school work. Yeah. And I could take it with me. Right. And I could do it on my schedule. And that, I think, is one of the huge advantages of Dragonfly.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, like, were you late night, got some coffee or tea later in the afternoon or early evening or even later, and you kept going? Or were you like a weekend warrior when it came to your academic work, Saturday morning, Sunday morning?
I was a late night.
Okay.
That is,
gotcha.
I had to, because I just found it too inefficient. There's too much going on and I was too distracted. And so, like I said, the kids go to bed and then I did my best work. I joked, I do my best work from 10 to 1 in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you got to get up the next day and go to work. But I found it energizing. I actually did. I know you're like, this sounds crazy, but pursuing that passion actually, I think, energizes the rest of your life. So I brought that energy that even at times it wasn't connected to my career. It still brought energy into my career and my life. I felt reconnected by doing this program.
That's wonderful. That's what we hope, but it's so hard. Like, your outlook, it really determines some cases your energy, and it's evident listening to you, like how you've got that positive outlook and the passion of these things. And I certainly would hope anyone in the program can feel that too. I think it's hard though. It's still hard if you have had a tiring day to usually to get started at 10 p.m. to like really be like, okay, I'm going to go sit down by the computer, log in and start thinking, because your natural inclination at that point is to just crash. But I think once you get going and you find things you are excited about and people that are responding favorably to you, yeah, it can be wonderful.
And I'm a planner, so I could plan ahead and work ahead.
Okay.
And I tried not to procrastinate, but there were still times when, this response is due tomorrow, and I need to get going on it. So, with the bigger projects, I'd really try and get, here's advice for people who are in the program. I felt it worked for me to really put great effort into my rough draft. I'd get better feedback from my peers, and like the bulk of the work is done. Like if you turn in some crappy rough draft, you have a whole lot of work yet to do. So I got better feedback and I ended up with a better project, and I felt good being almost done, right? When I did a good rough draft.
More work earlier means less work later.
Exactly.
So, and better work overall and less stress. But
that is what I did.
Very cool. I wanted to also ask you a little bit more about the Girl Scouts. And I saw that you were involved with a program called Journey, Journey it's like
in a day.
Yeah. So what is that? And are you still working with the Girl Scouts? I guess I'd be curious about all that.
Yes. So 2 of my kiddos are girls. They're both in Girl Scouts. In fact, my oldest is doing her Gold Award project, which is the equivalent of like an Eagle Scout in scouting. So for the Girl Scouts, it's your Gold Award. And lo and behold, she's like, she's placing bluebird nest boxes at a camp that she goes to that has hundreds of acres in Florissant, Colorado. So I helped her. It's her project, but I was an advisor, and it was kind of fun. She's 17, I don't know how much she likes hanging out with me, but we went to a bluebird class together. And I said, Maddie, this is a great opportunity. And she doesn't want to hear it from me. She doesn't want to learn from me. I said, let's go. There's a bluebird seminar this weekend. Let's go. I'm like, this is amazing. We get a bluebird seminar with Miss Maddie. But anyway, still with Girl Scouts. My youngest is also in Girl Scouts. And the Journey in a Day is an annual. I created that program as part of a internship with Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. So there's a citizen science journey that the Girl Scouts have, but there's not a lot of programs to support in our area. It wasn't easy for someone to do this journey. So let's step back a moment. Most people know that Girl Scouts earn badges. They can gain skills. They can earn a badge. A journey is a bigger project that you often will earn a series of badges during a journey. You'll work as a troop with your sister scouts, and part of a big piece of this is you'll be a leader in the community, and you will create and implement a take action project. That is how a journey is bigger than just getting a badge. That's not just getting an archery badge. You're now learning about, in this case, citizen or community science. You're engaging, you're learning about what it is, and you're creating an event or a project to engage your community in doing citizen science.
That seems like a perfect opportunity for many Dragonfly students and others, people just interested in leveraging the Girl Scouts, because they probably are looking for projects, right? Like
absolutely. So these leaders do not have the time or bandwidth to figure out what they're going to do with their troops every week during their meetings. So whether you're a Girl Scout involved in Girl Scouts or not, if you created this is a journey in a day. If a troop leader can go and sign their Girl Scouts up for a program like this and it's put on by someone else who knows the topic, they are all in.
Right.
So, right, they're like, great, sign us up, we're going. And so there really wasn't the programming in my area for the Journey in the Day Citizen Science project. So I created it.
Well, and plus you could not only show up and talk about it, but bring probably some birds, which was probably a huge incentive, I would think, for those groups as well.
Yeah. Well, now they're out, these girls are out in nature, right? And it's not just birds, because we did we used iNaturalist. So it's everything living, right? So it's bugs, and the bugs are a great hit. You know, they're out there catching bugs and recording them in iNaturalist and being citizen scientists. And, you know, and we just created a few activities to support their becoming a scientist and viewing themselves as scientists, and in engaging them, right? Like the power of observation and things like that. We just created some games around that connected with the Girl Scout programming. And then now this is an annual event. And last year it was sold out, and we ran 2 different seminars.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's just going back to you talking about your daughter and Maddie doing the bluebird houses as well. And it's funny, like you said, so often the kids don't want to do exactly what mom or dad's doing, but they kind of, you know, might find themselves in a similar domain if it's someone else leading the experience. So that's super cool to think about as well. Well, I know we're kind of getting to the end of time, but I just thought I'd ask if there's any sort of inspiring, I don't know if you have time for TV or reading, anything you're reading that you're into, or anything you've watched recently that you think is super fun and interesting to folks. It doesn't have to be animal related either.
No. I recently read Nature's Best Hope. I was inspired by that book, and I know that author is also speaking and doing some webinars. Yeah, I don't know the author's name, but it's about you know, taking action in your own backyard. That's where conservation needs to start. Yeah.
Okay.
Enjoyed that a lot.
Nice.
So that's inspiring to me. I think also because I really feel passionate about now having a voice as someone in my community who can take action for conservation, like, you know, start at home, right? And I feel like I can connect to my community and do these projects now. And I have the confidence, you know, and I feel like I've gained leadership skills and improved my communication skills through Dragonfly to do some of this. So I feel like that book really spoke to me, especially from a community standpoint, and starting at home, starting with conservation in your own backyard.
Right. Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about as well. As it's turning to spring here in Ohio, and everything's turning green and everything's blooming, and there's a lot of work to be done. When we moved into our house, I would say 90% of the biomass in our backyard was invasive non-native plants that had just taken over. And it's been so hard to get a foothold, but now we have a trillium blooming in our backyard, actually, which I just absolutely adore, love trillium. And they're not super easy they're not super hard, but they're not easy to have thrive, depending on the soil and the sunlight. So I'll have to check out this book and get some more ideas. Anything else you want to share with folks before we sign off?
No, it's been fun. Thanks for inviting me.
This was great. Like, this was a lot. And it's just like so many stories that I hadn't. It's funny, through the years we interacted off and on, but like through this kind of informal conversation, hearing a few more things and getting a better picture of all you've done and continue to do. And it's exciting, just like I said before, hearing how excited you are. So yeah, thanks again for joining. And I guess that's it for now. Take care.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hi there, folks. Just one more thing before you head on out. If you have a moment, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would love to hear in what ways you are finding this podcast useful, how you listen, what you would like to hear more of, less of, etc. Please feel free to send me any and all feedback, any ideas for guests, etc. to Kevin Madison at my email, which is mattiskc@miamioh.edu. That's spelled MATTESKC @miamioh.edu. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.